Welcome back everyone to this new inventory 2.0 sort of mini series. It's just going to be a 2-episode series. This is the first episode here where we set up the basic user interface and the functionality of the inventory. Keep in mind this video is split into 2 parts. The first part is setting up the basic items and the way the inventory works, the basic functionality. The second part of the episode is adding this great user interface into it. So this great grid sort of standard user interface for basically every inventory system out there. So that's the second part. The reason I've done that is so if you just want to do the basic functionality, just listen to the first half of the video. If you want to add this user interface as well onto it as a separate layer, then you can follow in with the rest of the episode. Just saves people who just want the basic functionality, and then you can add your own interface onto it however you want as well. So it's a very flexible, very portable type of inventory system. So that said, I'm gonna shut up now and carry on to the rest of the video. Enjoy, guys. Okay, so to get started, I've loaded up a brand new Unity 2021 project. Doesn't matter which preset you use, we're going to be able to drag and drop this basically into any project you want. First thing I've done is just download the voxel pack. It's still in a zip form. If you want to download it, you can get it from Kenny Assets. You all know that I love the Kenny Assets page. They got some really good quality assets there, so highly recommend them. Make sure you donate or become a Patreon as well to support them. Link will be in the description for this asset pack as well. So once you have that, you're going to drag and drop the zip folder into Unity, and then you're going to right click and say show in Explorer. We're going to extract this really quick, so I'm just going to select it, right click and say extract all. Hit enter. That'll start extracting. There we go. Boom. Done. Now we just have to click back into Unity. Unity is gonna unpack everything and set up all the images and everything we need. We can then get rid of the zip folder, or what I suggest is for you to archive this so you don't have to download it next time. That said, I'm just gonna delete it. Voxel pack we now have. I don't need any of this. There we go, and I don't need any of this. Keep the license, that's important. PNG is the only thing I want to keep. All these folders can go. That's it. So that said, characters can actually go as well. Particles can go and other can go. I don't need them. Only thing I really need is the items for the purpose of this tutorial. Tiles I will keep as... Actually, I don't need the tiles, that's fine. All I need is the items. Okay, so now to set up the items, you're gonna go Control A. And we're just going to select all of them and mess around with some of their import settings just to set them up how we need them to be. First thing we're going to do is make sure texture type is sprite or 2D UI. Pixels per unit should be 128 for this asset pack. Pixels per unit should be whatever size your sprites are. So for example, if they're 128 by 128, which these are, then you want pixels per unit to be 128. Alpha should be transparent. Wrap mode can stay as clamp. Filter mode, if you're using pixel art, do point no filter. Otherwise, you can do build near or trill near. I stick with build near for now. Compression can stay normal quality. Unless you're using pixel art, then do no compression. Okay, with that all done, press apply, and that will now make them all look properly and normal. So our next step is going to be setting up the main inventory script. Before we do that, I'm going to create a item class. So all an inventory script really is a it's a list of item classes, or items rather, where each item class has its own data, etc., name, image, whatever you want to add to it. So our items are going to be scriptable objects, so we can add as many as we want using the same class. And I'm going to show you guys a few cool little methods, and we're going to be messing around with some abstract classes, interfaces, and whatnot. So it is going to get a little bit confusing, but bear with me. I'm going to explain everything as best as I can. So first thing we're going to do is just create a new C# script, and I'm going to call this item class, like so. And then some of your items are going to be more specific than others. For example, you may have some consumable items, some miscellaneous items, some tools, etc., whatever you may have. So I'm going to create another C# script and call this tool class. Now, tool class is going to inherit everything from our item class. Okay, so it's going to be a subclass of item class. And you'll see how that sort of works together later. I don't know why that null reference came up. Another thing we're going to do is another type of item. So for example, if I want a miscellaneous item, So we'll call this miscellaneous class or misc class. And then as well as that, I want to create a consumable class. If it lets me type. Unity is just trying to catch up. Consumable class. Okay. So now these three are subclasses. The miscellaneous tool class and consumable class. They're all subclasses of item class. And they're all going to be scriptable objects. So we're going to set that up in just a sec. We just need another script, which we're going to use later. And this is going to be our inventory manager. And our inventory manager is going to manage our inventory. So let's double click on the item class to load that up in Visual Studio or whatever code editor you're using. Once that's loaded, we can get started. So like I said, everything's going to be a subclass of item class, which means our item class is simply an abstract class. It's not a mono behavior. It is literally just an abstract class. Cool. So if you don't know how abstract classes work, basically they're really cool. It lets you define everything without using it. So you'll see how that sort of works later. I'm just going to open up all our scripts for now. So if I load up the tool class next, I don't know why they're not all loading together. Usually they do, but obviously today just didn't want to work. So our item class is going to have each item. How can I explain this? Basically, every single data which is shared across every item, which is common. So for example, a string for the name. Every item has a name, and every item has a sprite or an image, right? So that goes inside the item class. So here I can have public string item name, and then I can have a public sprite for item icon. So that's all common across the item classes. So now in our inventory, when we have a list of item classes, they all have this. I spelled item wrong here. Now, the difference is, if we want to ever get the item class, we need a function to do so. So I can have a public item class, and this is going to be called get item. And this is simply not real. So this is a, this is abstract. So this is where abstract classes start to get a little bit confusing, where we're defining a function here. This is a function. However, we're not implementing the function's actual role. So the function is going to do something, but we're not sure what it's going to do just yet. So we're just going to define it. We will use it later. The way we're going to use it actually inside the subclasses. And before we do that, I just want to create another one, and this is going to be called tool class, and this is going to be saying get tool. And then obviously I want to do one for the misc class. And this is going to say get miss. And then we want one for consumable class. And this is going to say get consumable. So these functions are all here. We're going to define them literally now. So our tool class, like I said, it's going to inherit from item class. So we don't need systems generic. We don't need these functions. And it's not going to be mono behavior. It's going to be of type item class. Now this is going to give us an error saying it doesn't implement the inherited abstract member. So basically it's saying we have these functions that we've defined here, but we haven't actually given them a use here. And that's saying that's a problem because we need to use them. So I'm going to copy all these and paste them here. And get item. Now remember, tool class is of type item class. So if I say return this, it's actually going to let me do that because, or maybe not. Right, it's not. Yeah, these aren't abstract anymore. My bad. There we go. Right, yeah, override. There we go. Okay. Yes, these have to be override functions because they're overriding the definition in the superclass, or rather in this one. So, my bad, just had a brain fart there. Okay, so the reason return this works, even though this is of type tool class, it's also of type item class because it inherits everything from item class. And the reason that's important for our inventory is because then we can have a list of items but each item could be a tool, it could be miscellaneous, it could be consumable. And the way we're going to determine which one it is by determining, well, you'll see now, if I say return this for the tool class as well, because again, it's a tool class and an item class. Miscellaneous, we can't say return this, because this is not a miscellaneous class. It's an item class or a tool class. So there is no miscellaneous class, which means we're just going to return null, which means on our item class, if we ever say item class dot get miscellaneous and it returns null, that just means to our code that it's not a miscellaneous item. Now I can do the same for this one as well, return null, and that will be fine. Now remember, our tool class can have its own definitions. So to make our inspector look a bit nice, I'm going to create a header here and call this item. Yeah, I will do that. And then here I'm going to have another header and call this tool, which means all our tool variables are going to go here. So I might create a drop down for tool type. So that's a public enum tool type. And tool type could either be a weapon, a pickaxe, let's say hammer or axe. So those are our tool types, and then we can have a public tool type here and say tool type. Just like that. And that means every tool has a tool type, but every tool has a tool type, item name, and item icon. And that's basically it. So I'm going to copy these override functions from our tool class and paste them into the miscellaneous class. That'll give us an error at first, but that's fine. Get rid of this system generic. And then I can say item class, because this is of type item class. This here is when we say return this for the get tool, this now should say return null, and then get miscellaneous will say return this, just like that. And then, for example, we'll have another header here, and this can be miscellaneous. I don't know how to spell that, to be 100% honest, and I'm not going to try because that's just embarrassing myself. Miscellaneous will have, I don't know, I guess it could have whatever data you would want to add to it. For this purpose, I'm probably not going to add anything because it's just miscellaneous. Consumable class is going to be different. I'm going to paste these functions back into consumable class, delete line 2, systems generic, blah, blah, blah. And this is, of course, item class as well. Now, get miscellaneous is going to say null, and then get consumable is going to return this. And then we're going to add a header here to say consumable. And then I'll have a public float, I guess. And this will just say, I don't know, health added or something. So this is the amount of health that is added to the player's health. We're not going to set this up. This is just some placeholder data, which you can mess around with if you wanted. But the point is that under here, you'd have data specific to your consumable class. Under here, you would have data specific to miscellaneous class. So, you know, whatever you'd want to add. And I'll say here data specific to consumable class. And then here you'd say data specific to tool class. And then here you'd say data shared across every item. So you might even have an item ID or something here, you know? So that's all fine. Now, one thing is that our item class at the moment should be of type scriptable objects so that we can actually duplicate this and create instances of it. So what that means is now that since our item class is of type scriptable object and our tool class is of type item class, it means tool class is also of type scriptable object. So a bit of class inception going on, but believe me, all you have to worry about is the way that basically everything inherits from its root class, and the root class would be item class in terms of our scope, but in the larger scope, the root class is actually scriptable object. Now, why that's important is that because now we can create asset menu to the tool class specifically, and I can say file name equals new tool class, for example, and the menu name, I can define a file path here by saying items/tool. And I'll have to add another bracket there. Cool. So I'm going to copy this and put it onto miscellaneous class as well. And here I can say item/miscellaneous. And on the consumable class, I can do the same and say item slash consumable. And that's our classes coded. So now if you head back into Unity, we can create a few test classes. So let's delete that. That's fine. We'll clear our console. Now in here, I'm going to create a new folder just to keep things a little bit clean. Call this items. Let's open up items. And in here, I'm going to create a new. And you'll see we have this new selection here where we can go to item. And here we can choose either a consumable, tool, or miscellaneous. So I'm going to choose tool for now. And you'll see, interestingly, it has item name and item icon. However, we didn't actually define that here. We just have health, where is it? Tool class. We just have tool type. But because it inherits it, we can see both here. And that's what makes this really, really cool, is because we can inherit many things. So now I can give this an item name of, let's say, pickaxe. And actually, let's just do sword. Swords are cooler. Item icon, you can choose here any sword you want to choose, like so. And then tool type is, of course, weapon, right? We'll name this sword as well. That's not how you spell sword. Sword, there we go. And now if I want to create a, let's say, item miscellaneous class, you'll see that this only has item name and item icon. So I'll call this miscellaneous. I don't know, let's call this coal, I guess. Coal is a miscellaneous item. I'll do the same down here. And then item icon can be a coal sprite down here. And then I'll create another create item, and this will be a consumable, and I'll just call this will be an apple. And you see now we have health added, so I can say it adds 5 points of health, for example. It's not going to for our use case, but you know, let's just say in theory it does. And that's basically, we have 3 items set up now. Now you're going to be like, oh, why did we go through all that effort of inheriting blah blah blah? I'm going to show you right now. So if I create an empty item, I'm just going to call this inventory. Sorry, an empty game object in our scene called inventory. Reset the position, whatnot, and I'm just going to drag and drop our inventory script onto it. At the moment, it doesn't do anything. That's fine. In our inventory manager now, I'm going to show you guys why inheriting is so important for an inventory. So let's say I wanted to hold different types of items in the same list, right? I want to hold tools and miscellaneous. So if I had a public list of type tool class, and just call this items, right? Equals new list of type tool class. Now that's going to show up in our inventory. That's going to be fine. Okay, that's going to be perfectly fine down here. That's going to show up a new list of items, and we can add whatever items we want to it. All right, so I have 3 items I want to add. Let's lock the inspector here for now. Now I'm going to add a sword. Successful. Coal doesn't let me add coal. Why? Because coal isn't a tool class. Now it'd be the same if I wanted to add miscellaneous class of type miscellaneous class. It wouldn't let me add sword to it. Now sword's going to disappear because it's going to say incompatible type or something. So now I can't add sword, but I can add coal. I still can't add apple though. So this thing is, obviously, since these are different types of classes, but they inherit item class. If I have a list of item classes and item class there, now I'll be able to add all 3, which are different types of classes. They have different data. They have, you know, they're completely different essentially. But since they inherit item class, I can add sword, coal, and apple into the same, you know, the same list. And you'll see here it says tool class, miscellaneous class, consumable class. And that is basically the functionality of having items and an inventory script. That's pretty much it. So now that's basically our inventory setup. We have a list of items. Perfect. Now we just want a remove function and a add function. So I'm going to have a public add, public void add, and this will take in an item class item. And all this will do is say items.add item. Now remember, since our item is a tool class, miscellaneous class, or consumable class, I can literally say add to anything. So in the, for example, start function, let's say public void start. Here I will say add, and then it will take in a new item. So I can pass in an item here, but I will do that. Let's say I'll create a public item class item to add. And then here I'll just add item to add. Okay, so And this is just for to show you guys how it will basically work. So our item class, this is the item we want to add. This would be something like you picked up an item from the ground, right? So it could be however you want to script this. I'm just putting in the start function for now, but this would essentially be, for example, when you collide with the item drop, then you would add the item to add. And our add function is going to take the item, which again could be miscellaneous, tool, consumer, whatever. It's going to add that to our list, right? Now our remove function is the more complicated one. Remove. Why does it do that? Okay, remove, and this will take in an item class item as well. Now it's going to look through our list and remove the item we want to remove. So let's have a public item class item to remove, and this will be, you know, again, scripted however you want to script it. So that for example, you wanted to drop an item onto the floor, you choose that item from your inventory. Now your item class is your selected item, and then you would say item to remove equals selected item, and then remove item to remove. So here we go. And I'm going to test this in the start function after we do the add bit. So it's going to say items.remove, and this takes in an item class item, and I can just pass an item, and that's basically it. No need to overcomplicate it, no need for anything else. That's pretty much it. So now we're going to have 2 slots here, and one thing I'm going to do is say the item I want to add is an apple, right? So I'm going to get rid of apple from my list. There is no more apple in my list anymore. And then I want to remove sword. So what should appear when I press start is that when I press play, the apple should appear at the bottom of the list. Let's see what happens. Boom, apple has appeared at the bottom of the list as a consumable class. Perfect. Now, let's say I want to remove the item to remove. So we said we'd want to remove the sword. So in theory, what should happen now is when I press play, sword is deleted from our list and apple appears at the end of the list. And let's see if that happens. Perfect, no more sword, and we have now an additional apple. It happens quite quickly, obviously, because it's how code works. But if I press stop, you'll see that sword comes back and apple is removed. Here we go. Perfect. And that's literally it, guys. Like, yeah, that's the basics functionality of our inventory system already set up. So like I said, now I'm going to go and set up the GUI. So thanks for watching this one, guys. I will catch you in the next video. Take care and peace.